So, yeah, I was wrong. I hold my hands up. England did manage to beat Mexico. I did bring up things like altitude, which, in fairness, everyone was fucking bringing up, and a couple other things. But I'll be honest, I was just bringing them up to justify, the kind of, it sounded cool to bring these sort of things up. I did think Mexico were going to win. I'm not trying to backtrack on that, but yeah, bringing the altitude into it can sound like I know what I'm fucking talking about. But yeah, that is a huge, huge win for England. I talked in the last video about how if England don't change something real quick, they've got big, big problems if they want to win the World Cup. Well, this performance for me, honestly, completely changes my view on how they could do in this World Cup. Now, I understand that Mexico were obviously the home team in what is this? Well, I mean, kind of fraudulently, but it is classed as a home tournament for them, even though, no, even if they did get through, I'm pretty sure no more games after that one are getting played outside the US. But they were more on the front foot than I actually expected them to be. I know it's a home tournament, so they're going to be more on it than some of the previous teams. England have played like Congo, like Ghana, like Panama, whatever, but they were on it. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, the energy, the crowd boots them up and whatever. But first 20 minutes, I thought England did very, very well defensively. Didn't really allow Mexico to have that many chances. There was one chance which Pickford made a very good save from, where Jimenez had the header, but it wasn't like a, fucking hell, he should have scored there type shot. Then England caught them on the counter attack. It was great play by Saka, in my opinion. I haven't talked about football a lot on here too much, especially when the season's been going on, but I particularly think Saka gets a lot of hype and whatnot, and for that reason I kind of get on his back a lot, even though I haven't particularly done that in videos, but I do get onto him. But no arguing, he did very, very well to create the chance for Bellingham, who essentially came in the back post and headed it in. And something I mentioned in the last video, in the last reaction, for England, you need your big players to step up in these tournaments. Last time it was Kane, who also scored in this game. Today it was Bellingham, and that's another player who I was kind of questioning the hype. Is he as good as people say, whatnot? But you can't deny when the fella puts an England shirt on, he steps up in big moments, scoring 2 goals today. The second goal, I'll be honest, Mexico, I know they haven't conceded a goal this tournament, but it looked like they never conceded a goal. Ever. It was like they almost completely lost their heads. Put that on the fact that England won the ball pretty much straight from kickoff, and it was, England just pretty much walked through them and ended up scoring. Bellingham again with the goal. And when that second goal went in, especially the fact that it was in such quick succession from the first one, I genuinely thought at that point England could run away with it. Now, fair play to Mexico. They were looking stunned after the first goal. It meant that they conceded the second goal, but then after that, they came right back into it, started getting on the front foot more. It was a bit of a, I wouldn't really say it was poor defending necessarily. It was all in the box. It was defended, just wasn't cleared particularly great, and falls to Quinones, who again steps up. He's been good for Mexico in this tournament. I think it showed when he scored. He scored 4 goals in 5 games. Now you can argue about the opposition and stuff, but end of the day, this is Mexico. I know it's a home tournament, but it's not. They're not like a top 5, national team, are they? Let's be honest. So to score 4 goals in a World Cup anyway is great. So fair play to the lad. And then after that goal, obviously the crowd are getting back up for it. I said when it went 2-0 to England, I thought England could run away from it. Mexico looked like they didn't really know what to do. Obviously got them back into the game. And then it almost completely switched, and it was like England would have been thinking, oh fuck, like they might score again. Dead quick here. Like they were on the ropes for the rest of the half. Kind of lucky in the sense that it was only a couple of minutes away from half time, so they only had to ride it out for a couple of minutes. If it had been 10 minutes longer, Mexico could have got a goal, could have been a different game. Pickford made another good save. Again, it wasn't a clear-cut chance, but Jimenez with another header. Good save from Pickford. Gets them into 2 at half time. And from the first goal, really, the game became an absolute World Cup classic. The referee, the madman from the game against Turkey, Paraguay, and everyone always brings up the clip where he sent off Almiron. He was like, "Number 10, cover his mouth, Ricard." But if you watched that game, I know there wasn't many people because it was 4:00, but if you're unemployed like me and you watched that game, to be honest, the fella was a complete diva throughout the whole game, like main character syndrome. Again, he was a big man in this match, really pivotal figure in stuff that turned out. Now, in my opinion, before I get into the actual decisions, I can see both the fors and againsts for both the VAR decisions. I think the pen for England was unarguable. Now, I've mentioned it a couple of times in previous videos where I've talked about England. My allegiance to them isn't as strong as a lot of other people. Yes, I'd want them to win out of any of the nations at the World Cup, but just because of the allegiances I have with club players, I just can't separate it from, like, you know, all the different like clubs of and just players that I hate when they're playing for the clubs and trying to get behind them when they're playing for England. Like I can't switch up like that. So people might listen to the next bit and think I'm being completely biased, but like I've just told you, that's what I think on England. So it's not like I'm like the most patriotic and I'm just being like totally deluded. If I was a proper mad Mexico fan, I can completely understand the points they would make, and I would completely agree with them if I was a Mexico fan. But in my opinion, both decisions I disagree with. I can definitely see why they were given, and yes, if they were the initial decisions given on the pitch, I probably would say they're the right decisions, but for that reason, that's why I think it's wrong, because VAR is supposed to be clear and obvious. Clear and obvious means if I get a couple of mates in here, could all support different clubs unanimously, regardless of what club we support, regardless of what team the decision is for or against, we can all sit here and go, yeah, that's a pen, or that's a red card, and ball, whatever it is. Whereas both of them, for me, I can't necessarily say that. I think the room would be split on most of them. Obviously, the initial decisions on the pitch from the referee before VAR got involved were both in England's favour, but like I said, it might sound like I'm being biased, but like I said, I'm not completely in support of England. I think both were harsh, even just the decisions themselves. Now, the Kwanzaa one, yes, he catches him high on the leg, but first of all, we've seen a few of them in this tournament with being quite high up on the leg, studs into the leg and whatnot. And yes, I understand that usually is a red, and if it, like I said, if it's on one of my players, then obviously I'm going to sit there and go, that's a red card, that's a blatant red card, whatever. But we've seen it throughout the World Cup. There's been multiple of those similar type of situations, and the player hasn't been sent off for it. And I also think fair enough if Kwanzaa just goes directly into his leg, but he didn't. He got the ball first and then went into his leg. Yes, I know the contact is still there. Yes, his studs do go into his leg, and it is high. Maybe my mind is being a bit swindled on the fact, because I think it was Gallardo, whoever the Mexican player was, kind of jumped over it to try and kind of avoid it in a sense. So that is probably why the force in terms of how long his studs made contact with the Mexican player's legs wasn't for that long. But I don't think in terms of actual, yes, like I said, the stud's high on his leg, but I don't think the force was actually for that long. And then you added that onto the fact that he actually got initial touch the ball. I do think it was harsh, and I think this, especially when you've already gave the decision on the pitch that it wasn't a red card, then I think with the clear and obvious, just stick with that. And then again on the Mexico penalty, yes, again he does make contact, but it's one of those ones for me, because yes, Kane, was unaware that the play was there. Yes, he gets contact with him, but it's not like the Mexico player got ahead of him and got like a clean touch on the ball where he was actually going to do something with it. He kind of just stuck his leg out in front of Kane. Like, if Kane didn't make contact with him, but Kane was still there in the position that he was, the Mexico player couldn't have physically done anything else with the ball. Do you know what I mean? And then also, if Kane's foot had kicked through the back of his leg or kicked through the back of the Mexican player's foot, then yeah. But the fact that like his shin is the thing that made contact with the Mexican player's foot, I'm like whose shin's that powerful? Do you know what I mean? Like, the whole point of a pen, especially in this situation, is that it stops you from being able to do the next action, whether that's a pass, whether that's another touch, whether that's a shot, whatever it is. I don't see how someone can shin you in the foot, shin you upwards in the foot when you've got studs on, and that can make you go down. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, like there was a similar one the other day where Belgium against Senegal. That one, Tielemans is actually getting a touch on the ball and going to be able to do something with it, and the Senegal player kicks through the back of his leg. This one, he puts his leg across Kane, just as if to say, I'll put my leg there and he might touch me. Do you know what I mean? I don't really think, because you can't do anything after that, so I don't really understand it, but at the same time, he does connect with him, so he technically has stopped him from getting the ball, so I can't see why it has been given. Again, don't think with the clear and obvious, it's one that if it wasn't given on the pitch, should have been overturned. Similarly, if it was given on the pitch, I don't think it should have been overturned and given as a non-penalty, but, you know, this is my thing with VAR. It's got to be one or the other. It's either you're going over there to try and, you know, completely make a decision on the incident, or you're telling us clear and obvious. How does that compare with the decision you gave on the pitch? Is it sort of you know, is obviously the wrong decision initially? Like, you got to stick with one or the other. Pickford's been getting a lot of hate recently, obviously I talked about in the last video, the fact that I think he should have saved the pen against Congo. But I thought he had a really, really good performance today. Like I said, with some of the saves he made, but also England went down to a red card. Obviously, they were defending a bit before that anyway, because Mexico were right on them. But then even more so when it went a red card. Mexico brought these 6'3", just hit at 6'3", and out strikers on. Literally took all the wingers off, hailed everything into the box, and he was so confident coming out. Claimed a lot of crosses, whether it was punching or catching, and that's a big thing for a defence when you're constantly sitting behind the ball. So I think he was very, very good today and showed why he is still England's number one, and he has been for ages, despite the fact he gets a lot of shit. You know, I'm not acting like I didn't give him it, because, you know, I gave him a lot of shit in the game against Congo, because I thought he should have saved it, but he stepped up today. I also think one thing that should get a bit of credit, or someone else should I say, is Thomas Tuchel. There was a lot of talk before the tournament even started about the players he picked, including players like Dan Burn, players like Jordan Henderson. Well, one of them didn't get on, but Dan Burn today came on, and if you could ask me what sort of game could come about where Dan Burn is going to come on for England at this tournament, I'd say in most cases probably the whole of the defence have to get injured to the point where he's one of the only options left, or it would have to be a pretty meaningless game and Tuchel just kind of gone, yeah, you know, just throw him on, give him a couple minutes, or it would be the type of game that he was thrown into today. Like I said, Mexico took all the wingers off, just kept, you know, let the fullbacks put all the crosses in the box. Literally already had Jimenez on the pitch, who's tall, physical threat himself in there. Brought Santiago Jimenez on, some other fella, they said he was 6'3". Brought them on into the box, hailing balls in. That's where you need someone like Dan Burn. Yes, obviously defenders are taught to, you know, clear ball, you know, that's the whole job, told to get rid of the ball, whether that's heading, whether that's blocking a shot, whatever. But although Mark Gahey, John Stones also made important interceptions, having someone like Dan Burn in there who can physically go toe to toe with these type of strikers was important in this game, especially when you're down to 10 men and you're literally just looking to hang on. And I also think credit to Jed Spence as well. Obviously he's had his critics in this tournament. Tuchel's been shouting at him himself, and he got dropped for this game, but he came on and he made an important interception. Jimenez chested it down, and, you know, not to say he would have definitely scored, but he would have had a very good chance at equaling the game, and Jed Spence made a very important challenge, and he made a couple as well, so fair play to him. I said at the start of this video, this completely changes my opinions on England going forward. This doesn't mean to say that, you know, fucking the France, I know they can't get France to the final, but if they were to play France tomorrow, I think England fucking smashed them, or anything like that. But at least into the run up to the final, it would make me a lot more confident if I was the most of patriotic English fans, seeing that performance and then going up against the teams that they could be facing on the run to the final, which obviously we know for definite is Norway in the next round, but then what probably is going to be Argentina should they get through to the semi-final. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously England do still have to perform. Norway are a decent side, they've just beaten Brazil today. Haaland, obviously my fucking striker, go on Big Earl, showing up for your country. You know, I have want him to win it just so he wins the fucking Ballon d'Or, because he should have won one a couple of years ago. But forgetting that for now. Obviously, they've got Erling Haaland, they've got Ødegaard, but generally they are quite a decent team. For anyone that watched the game, we've seen the goalkeeper today. I'm pretty sure he's played for like Villa and stuff in the past, but he's never really cemented his place at anywhere noticeable. I don't even know where he's playing right now, to be honest. And yet he had an incredibly good game today. Saved the penalty and was just good generally in the game. So Norway isn't going to be the easiest to test, and if it had been in place of this Mexico one today, and I was doing kind of a preview for that, looking ahead into that one, I'd kind of worry based off the way England had played in the first 4 games. But this one today was a huge test, and they completely, they were really good today. And I know Mexico, if we just singling them out as a team, taking away, the circumstances of being in Mexico in their stadium, altitude and whatnot, I know it's not the same as playing like an Argentina or something, which, obviously England could get in the final, but with the circumstances included, which obviously it was, it showed what England could do when they're really tested. And to be honest with you, if they take that into the Norway game, they can beat them. I mean, even before they could have beat them anyway, they just had to step up the performances, which they hadn't shown in the tournament, which is why, I thought Mexico would win this game. But with this taken into account, you saw Argentina the other day. Obviously, they've got Messi, who's fucking the greatest player of all time. But you've seen in the game against Cape Verde the other day, other than Messi, and I know this kind of goes against the point I'm about to make with Martinez scoring and whatnot, but you don't really have a lot going for them, Argentina, other than Messi. So I could see England winning that. I genuinely could see England winning that. So, yeah, all that change based on today. That's how quick things can change in football. Do I think England going to win the World Cup? No, because, France is still there. But this makes me a lot more in belief that they could make it to the final.